Now then, so if this doesn't already sort of give it away, gonna go over the leaked patch notes. So if you haven't seen this, this was sort of flying about the Reddit a little bit, um, and it seems reasonable. The patch notes for the next patch. So no games today. We're gonna have a look at this stuff because I think there's actually some quite relevant changes in here. So we'll have a look at these. So there's only actually one nerf, and it's Bloody Mistress up one provision. Which I think, if anything, it's Mamuna that needs a provision nerf. To be honest, I maybe would have kept Bloody Mistress at 10, put Mamuna to 11, maybe even both of them to 11. I think would have been fine. But I think I agree with that. Revenants needed touching a little bit. Bit of change there. I think also one thing they could do is literally a drop of one power on the Self Eater would actually be really, really relevant. And so the reason for this is when you initially play it as a 6 and it splits itself into two threes, and you can play a relic and it boosts itself up to two fours. But if you have it at 5 power, if you split it in half, it'll go to be two powers. So it's not as initially impactful. It takes a bit more time to get ramping up and stuff. So that's definitely something that I think could be considered for sure. But then we have all the cool stuff, and I really like this because it looks like the kind of looking at the cards that either don't see play, see next to no play, or are just straight up overpriced, and trying to adjust that a little bit. So Clan Preacher's been dropped to 4 provisions. This is decent change. I think you still, in terms of a druid deck, want to just go with like hermits and Svalbard priests, and like the discard package I think is a little better, but it definitely means you could play this if you wanted to. I think it probably won't see much play, just because there's already really good, well, there's better choices in the 4P slot for druids and that kind of thing. So botchlings at 7 provisions. I think honestly this is still a bit overpriced, maybe 6 provisions. Bit of a weird card because it's quite nice in that it allows you to flip and it kind of requires killing in one turn. You can't just sort of damage it down. But I think it's still a little bit overpriced. I think if it's going to be 7 provisions, maybe put it to 6 power, just because at 5 power it just takes a rebuke and it's gone. So yeah, that one's a bit iffy. Shoot to 12 provisions, I really like. In all honesty, I think singletons need a bit more of a boost than just a 1 provision buff. I think it maybe just needs more singleton cards. So what I mean by that is that you only have one copy thing. So what Redea and Shoot need, but the problem is the payoff for doing singleton just isn't worth it, uh, because that extra stratagem or the power that Shoot can provide just isn't worth the commitment it requires to run singleton. I think what it probably needs is maybe you don't need cards, that top end. If we sort of had a 6 provision, 7 provision, 8 provision kind of card that benefit, like give you an extra effect if it's singleton, just something to beef it up a little bit because it's been a bit power crept. Cohen at 6 provisions, I really like this, and this is kind of for a couple of reasons. So 1 provision buff is always nice, but because it's 1 provision cheaper, so when it was at 7 provisions, if you pulled this with an AA, it boosts itself by 2, and that meant you could boost all of your 5s by 2. Now at 6 provisions, AA pulls it down as a 6, and you can boost all of your 6s by 3, which is a massive change. If you're looking to try that kind of thing, with something like a Visigurta, setting up lots of boosts and lining it up, that extra point is actually quite huge, being able to bring it out as a 6 rather than just a 5. So I really, really like that. It's kind of that knock-on effect that 1 provision change has had. Colossal at 5 power, won't waste your time, still unplayable. Pretty much the same for Triss Butterfly at 9 provisions. Just on the cusp of being like maybe good if you go for like a hand buff kind of thing, but still pretty bad. Cadwell at 6, again, it's still not that great. There's kind of reason for that is not its price. It's simply what it does isn't worth it. So this is the 10 power. It goes to the row with the most points at the end of the turn, and the problem with that is guaranteeing that you have the tallest unit is just a bit. It's risky. It's very risky to play it, and it can quite easily backfire. So it's more a card design thing rather than a pricing that makes it not really see play. So Odrin at 6, I actually really like. So this is the one that has the resupply and boosts itself, and with Inspired it boosts itself even more. It's kind of on the cusp, kind of on the cusp. Because Trollololo saw a bit of play in sort of siege warfare kind of lists. Wasn't that amazing, but it's there's this kind of mid provision slot where synergy with warfare cards can really be exploited. I think there's definitely a place for it. So Aldrin at 6 is something that's at least worth trying. I think it's maybe just a little bit too weak. I think you've got some little bit better choices, but you could run this instead of like a Margarita, for example. If you're going a lot heavier on the warfares with double bombardments, boiling oils, AA, got like a reinforcements, all of a sudden Aldrin's a fair few points at 6 provisions. So it's getting around that playable kind of area. Revenants at 4, I'm so happy about because I absolutely love playing Revenants. And I was actually trying to play some with the deck I was using on Tuesday, like a control NR kind of thing. But just at 5, I found that the investment of running like those and Forbidden Magic was just expensive. Those extra like 4 provisions you were losing didn't justify it being in the deck. But at 4, I'd just straight up put these in. They're a threat that needs answering. Um, Potentially a 3 point turn engine, which is kind of nuts. So I really like this, and of course now Portal pulls them, so you can just portal these out. I don't think that's the best use of Portal, but it's an option. If you want to go with that, you can definitely try that one out. Jitter at 7, I think is basically just a buff to SK Warriors, but I think SK Warriors have just been power crept a little bit. They can still compete, but just not as good, unfortunately. Because you don't really want to play her as a kind of as it comes card. You're really just using it for that 12 points, Blaze of Glory with Iced, that kind of thing is basically where she sees play. So yeah, it's a buff to SK Warriors, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think SK Warriors needed a little bit of a buff to be played. So this might be the thing. Elf and Onion Soup at 5 provisions, still really bad. Don't play it. Uh, really, because it's just kind of a meme card. Sometimes you're gonna hit something really good. A lot of the time you're gonna hit something really bad, and you have to sacrifice 2 cards on the board to do it, which is usually not that great of an idea. So yeah, still kind of bad, kind of bad. Imlerith at 3 power, 9 provisions. It's not bad. I don't think it's going to see play because sort of what it's doing is that cycling effect, which is pretty nice. We're kind of seeing with their cart of having that 3 power player special from your hand kind of thing. If you use this if this kind of reads as 3 power, play it again from your hand without its like armor conditional and draw a card, it sounds pretty good, but just not at 9 provisions. Like if it was like a 7 or like 8 provisions, I think at 7 provisions you'd always run this in any deck that runs again. But yeah, 9 provisions is still a bit overcosted. So Gaunt are at 6 power, still really bad. Gaunt is really not that good. Adding Doom to something, being able to destroy a doomed unit, like it has that potential to basically remove anything, but you don't need it as a control tool. There's much better ways to deal with stuff on the board. You compare this to something like a Vincent or whatever, you see how weak Gaunter is. Needs to stick for a turn just to remove 1 unit. Not that good. Not that good at all. Now, Ithlane at 6 power. Actually, I don't think it's too bad. it's still a little bit overcosted for what it's doing. So if, because you may not have seen this card, because it doesn't see that much play, it boosts a unit in your hand by 4. I think it might be only Skeletal units, but it's basically boost a unit by 4 in your hand. And this is basically just used with like Skags and a Glace, which are two cards that don't really see that much play. Beyond that, it's a 10 for 10. It's really not that amazing. So, I mean, I personally like this because it's in my Glace list. But beyond that, nah. There's no reason to run it. It's too expensive for what it's doing, basically. You really don't care too much about what it's actually doing. Ockfist at 6 power, it's still way too weak. Still way too weak. I like that they're trying to slowly creep up these old cards to make them a little bit more usable, but like Ockfist was so out of reach of being playable. A change of 1 power is not really going to change that. There's a million and one different cards you would run for the same provisions instead of it. So that change of 1 power won't make much of a difference. Tessa at 7 provisions is kind of nice. I think if Harmony hadn't been power crept, Tessa would be maybe something you'd consider. Um, but again, it's kind of a bit underpowered, and its synergy lies in an archetype that just doesn't see play and has been power crept a little bit. So yeah, I don't think you're gonna use that one a whole lot. Now, kind of like different. I probably said that wrong, but I think that's fine. Again, still a little weak, so this is the card that purifies all units on a row. I think I could be wrong with that, but again, that's like a design reason that it's not played. Similar to what I was saying about Cadwell, it's a design thing. It's not power. It's not a provision thing. It's just not that good. Sapugo at 11 power, you love to see it. This is like getting to the realms of playable. I mean, you could realistically run this in like a Thrive list, like in a Fruits list, or in um, Baraka Swarm, for example. Similar to how you just use Griffin, you play that 1 power unit, you slam it down. It's a big body. I think it's a little bit overpriced, but you could also run this in like a Deathwish list. If you're running like Penitent, just have a Fugo in there, have your Penitent down, consume it at some point, and just chew out an 11 power unit. It's pretty nice, pretty nice indeed. And it's point evaluation wise, even if it's sort of damaging a unit and you're not cheesing its ability a little bit, it's still it's still an 8 for 7. It's not amazing, but it's getting there. It's definitely getting there. I think 12 power on Pugo would be completely fine, and I think it would be probably the point where I consider running it. Now, uh, nearly pronounced it how it's written there, but it's Trial of the Grasses. 6 provisions. Honestly, I think you could run this in a Skellige Witcher deck and you'd be very happy. Because Trial of the Grasses it damages a unit by 6 and then sets its power to 12. Unless it's a Witcher, then it doesn't do the damage part, it just sets it to 12. And I think really in like a Skellige list, to be honest, you could run this because if you're running armor ups and so you spawn in those damaged Witcher students coming down with 1 power, 1 armor, Trial of Grasses is like an 11-point play, and it is very difficult for your opponent to remove all of those students in 1 turn. Quite simply, it doesn't happen because it's that 1 power, 1 armor thing. You don't want to waste points on the armor. So unless they output like 6 points of damage for 3 points, just to remove all 3 students, at least 1 is going to stick. So then Trial of the Grasses is a close to guaranteed 11 for 6. So I kind of like that. At 7, I think it was some. I mean, I personally haven't actually played The Witcher like flurry lists. I've not tried it, but it was definitely something I thought could see play. Like an 11 for 7 not amazing, but it's definitely playable. So yeah, I actually wouldn't be surprised to see this in that kind of list. I think it's borderline and auto include at 6 provisions. Plague Maiden at 8 power, 11 provisions, still really bad. Unless you're playing some like meme rat deck that's trying to capitalize on swarming the board, still really bad. Garrison at 9 provisions. It's 9 provisions, boost the unit by 10. Still really bad. Panther at 4 provisions. Still a little bit weak for what it's doing. Basically, at best, I think its points work out to be like a 7 for 4. And that's a conditional, so still not that great. You've got better choices. Desert Banshee at 4 provisions is really nice. This goes like straight in Deathwish decks now because I mean even in like a Vilist, for example, Vilist would run a Desert Banshee just because it's a consume at 4 provisions. 4 provision cards are basically free in the way that provisions work out. And I mean it's not bad, and also it gets itself boosted by every Deathwish you play, so it's kind of an engine in a way. Yeah, it's pretty good to be honest. Pretty good at 4 provisions. I think you'd auto include it to be honest in Vi and Deathwish. So it's pretty nice to see. Ruin at 10 provisions. It's still a bad succubus. Just if you want to do that cycle thing, just play succubuses. Ruin's just not that good. Not that good. Vivian at 8 provisions. Again, it's like I was saying with Cadwell, I think it's more a design rather than a costing kind of thing. So this is like set a unit's power to its provision costs. So I mean, realistically, it's 3 power for 8 provisions. So like for 8 provisions, what you want to be getting like 10, 11 points for it. To say it's kind of playable. Realistically, maybe more like 11 would maybe be acceptable. So you need to be hitting something like a Vincent, and beyond that, there's not really a great deal. Like even if you use this to boost up a Anna, it's not that good because you're boosting a 3 by 6. So she's playing as a 9 for 8, which is just not that good. And a lot of what Nilfgaard's doing doesn't work around this kind of thing of boosting up your units just through sheer boosts alone. It's that passive point generation while messing with your opponent's stuff. So this kind of just play down and play for like a bit of a point slam kind of card, just completely anti-synergistic with what Nilfgaard's trying to do. So yeah, Vivian's still not that good. Svanridge at 7 provisions is really nice. Arguably this sees play now. Well, I mean, I say it sees play. It would go in a Skellige Warriors damage kind of list. Mainly because now it can get pulled with Blood Eagle without the Bloodthirst, so now it opens up the opportunity to use Blood Eagle to get your third Bloodthirst unit, and then it's a boost up by 5, I think. So it plays as what, like a 10 for 7, pretty good. I mean, Skull saw some play, and that's like a conditional 10 for 7 that can very easily get removed. It's not just this is down as a 10. It is what it is now. So yeah, I think that's it's a pretty nice change. Pretty nice change. I think unfortunately the problem is Gallagher Warriors kind of don't see that much play, so I think that's gonna be its downfall. But I really like the change. Really like that change. Kikimo Queen, my absolute hero. Seen some change, but again, it's kind of been power crept. You wouldn't. Why would you play a Kikimo Queen when you can play Koshi? Quite simply. Knighthood at 5 provisions is still weak, still really weak. I wouldn't bother playing it. Menagerie Keeper at 4 provisions, still bad. And I'll save some time. Mutant Killer's exactly the same, still really bad. That's a lot. There was a lot to get through. As I said, some really interesting ones, and definitely ones that aren't just it's a nice little change. Like actually see some use, and it does indicate that they may be looking to look at some of these older cards and improve them, which I really like. Yeah, this will be hitting in like September, I would imagine. So definitely try those out, and I'm most excited for the Revenants. So hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.